Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kalia's Playbook, where we talk to athletes about their careers, life after college, the lessons they learned along the way, and so much more. Welcoming onto the show today is former DePaul women's basketball star, number 16 all-time scorer for the Blue Demons, fifth all-time in three-pointers made, and just 10 behind WNBA legend Allie Quigley. And I mean, the list goes on for you. There's so many accolades, but we are welcoming onto the show today, Lexi Held. Lexi, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course. So, Lexi, I want to start with you today on where did you wake up this morning?
I am in Pech, Hungary.
So you've had this very successful overseas career thus far. And correct me if I'm wrong, you started in Sweden, you were in Australia, Poland, Italy, and now you're in Hungary. So let's start with this Hungary team. How's that been going for you so far?
It's been going well. I think each year, each place I've been has been like a level up from the last, which is kind of what I love about overseas basketball. We are in the Hungarian Championship League, and then we are also we just got knocked out, but we were in the Euro Cup League as well. So we would play 2 games a week, one in the Hungarian League and then one in Euro Cup. So I was lucky enough. We played in Armenia, Spain, and Italy, and then back to Spain. So we made it to the final 16 in that. A little frustrating. We feel like we could have gone farther, but super great experience. Learned a lot. Played some very good teams, very good players. The season's going pretty well. We're having a pretty good season in the Hungarian league as well. I think we might be like third or fourth right now in the standings. We have another big game coming up on Saturday, and then a little bit of a break. So it's been good. As every season goes, there's some highs and lows, but I love where I'm at. I like my teammates. I like my coaches. So it's been fun.
Tell me a little bit about the day in a life in Hungary that the average American, maybe it's a little bit different for you, obviously, being born and raised here, going overseas. What are some of the most like significant cultural differences that you notice specifically in Hungary so far?
The language is pretty insane. I feel like everywhere I've been able to learn like a little bit and like at least kind of grasp the concept as like the year goes on. This language is a bit far out and I don't ever really know what they're talking about. So the language is always kind of a bit of a shock, but everywhere you go, especially being in the basketball world and around the team pretty much all the time, there is always going to be someone that can speak English. So as far as like that being a barrier, I thought that was going to be like a huge deal my first year overseas. And everywhere I've been, it's like you can always figure out what you're trying to communicate to some extent. So I would say that's like the biggest cultural thing. Other than that, it's honestly not like anything crazy where I'm at. I mean, you just kind of go about your business, and there's nice people and there's people that aren't nice. I mean, that's kind of everywhere you are. So it's nothing like too different other than sometimes you have no idea what people are talking about.
We talked a little bit beforehand that you and some of the other players are considered imports. Tell me a little bit about your team dynamic. Is everybody from different countries? Are there still a lot of Americans? Or what's the general demographic of what your team is?
So I'm actually the only American on this team, which is a little unusual. Most teams have two or wherever. Usually, so my team, I think in the Hungarian league, you're allowed 4 imports, which is whoever's not from Hungary.
Yeah.
So we have a girl from Czech Republic, me, a girl from Nigeria, and then a girl from Serbia. And then the rest are Hungarian players. So that's kind of standard on a professional team in Hungary, pretty much anywhere. Is you have a large amount of the team is going to be from its native country, and then a couple Americans, and then a couple other people. So it's always interesting to me to just meet people with such different backgrounds, and you come together all for the same goal. It's always, it's similar to America where people come from different states, different backgrounds, but even more so a little bit on a more extreme level here. So, but I've enjoyed it. Met some amazing people, and we all get along really well, and it's been fun.
What's been the most rewarding experience for you thus far, just being overseas in general?
Honestly, I've played in some really big games. I've had great games. I was lucky enough to be part of a team that won the Italian league outright, which was, a really big deal. But I think like looking back and still currently is I never realized how much like the game teaches you about yourself,
Mm.
like even day in and day out. Like it just like you learn so much about how you can handle adversity, how you can, do well, and then next game like you don't do so well, and then how you can get back to like your roots. And just I think it's been most rewarding, like learning how to overcome different things and working with different people, like more on a personal level, I guess, than a basketball level. Is It's more like probably rewarding to just learn in that aspect. And then of course like the basketball, the awards and the championships, like those are like priceless as well. But I think that was also the biggest surprise to me, is like how much it can teach you about yourself. Like, I mean, you have different experiences that usually can overlap into the real world, but I think the farther you go, especially in a professional sense, and then the harder the competition is,
Mm.
the more you have to be sharp on things that aren't just on the basketball court that make a difference. So I think that's been the most rewarding and kind of interesting to me.
How do you feel like you've changed in terms of that rewarding experience of learning more about yourself? Do you feel like you've grown a lot since just even college basketball, mentally and physically? Of just, do you think those are kind of two different players, or do you still have some of those same like mannerisms maybe that you had in college?
I think as far as like my mindset goes, it's like night and day. Like I almost don't even really know what I was thinking about in college. Like obviously I was present and worked hard and liked where I was, but I think once you're overseas and you are by yourself in a sense, I
Mm.
mean, I take pride in, making relationships with where I'm at, and I try not to like self isolate, because I think you get more out of the experience meeting people, going out with people, like, knowing your teammates, so that stuff. But yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like the mindset that your job is based on how good you do. Like in college, of course, like you need to do well, but you also have school, you also have outside activities, you also have different groups, and your scholarship's not going to get taken away because you didn't score that. Like so it's a little bit more secure, I suppose. And here it's of course like you have contracts and stuff, but your life is basketball at that point. And I think my first year overseas I learned a lot, because I on paper I had a great season, but I mean I got frustrated a lot, and then I didn't enjoy it as well, and then it snowballs, and then you go home and then you have a week until your next game, and it's like all you can think about is how you did last game, and then it's just like it can be very like you can spiral, and it can be not very fun. And then you see a lot of people their first year overseas, they're just kind of done with it. And so I think I had to take a step back and, maybe have a different relationship with basketball, maybe find a little bit more value outside of basketball to myself. And because I mean, overseas, it is very performance based, which
Mhm.
I love. I look at it as opportunity, and maybe an incentive is, if you do well this year, you could be on a whole new level next year, which I
Yeah.
love. Like I like that you can, increase so quickly. But at the same time, if you don't perform, people look at you differently, and you feel like, oh, well, that's my job and I'm not doing my job well. And like, oh, like I don't deserve this, whatever. So I think after college, I had to kind of reevaluate my mindset with basketball. And, you know, I've always loved the game, but it can become, frustrating, and you care so much, and then you get stressed, and you can easily, develop a not so healthy relationship with it. And I think that was kind of my first year overseas, was like I had it all like at once. I was like, okay, well, I'm by myself and I'm not doing as much as I want to do, and I'm not doing this, and I feel like I could be better, and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And I was like, and most of all, like I'm not having fun. Like I loved where I was at. I loved who I was with, but it's more like, you're your biggest critic. So it's like if you're not happy, then. So I think in the sense of that, I just like grew so much that first year. And then just still to this day, like, I can tell you right now, like the things that I like learned and can be better, but it's an everyday practice. Like
Mhm.
I can be like, oh, well, I just have to be quicker at letting things go, or I can have to control what I can control. And like all these little like things that are important, but it's still everyday practice. Like you have a bad practice. Like it's not like, oh, it's okay. Like, no, you still get frustrated. So I think that's like the biggest thing that I'm still continuing to work with, and I think it's why I'm getting so much better. How I am is because it's a lot of a mindset thing. Because I mean, I play against players that are extremely talented, extremely athletic, so skilled, but you can see after minute 2 if they don't get a call going their way, like they crumble and they're no good in the game. So it's like I think I didn't realize in college how big mindset was. Like, I mean, and like outside of how much work you have to put in and get better and skill and stuff, uh, it doesn't matter if you can't like stay present into the game and like apply those things, which obviously there's a million reasons why you could get taken out of that, happy mind space. But that's like the biggest thing I think for me.
And I really love that you said that too, because it is so much of being a mental game. And a lot of that is much easier said than done. Just being like, oh, like have a positive mindset. I feel like
Mhm.
that's something that especially athletes are maybe told a lot, just be like, think positive thoughts or something like that. But it's so much easier said than done. And I love that you said that it's a practice that you work on every day. What does that look like to you, I guess, in terms of practicing? Like, say there's something that happens within a practice or within a game, and your initial reaction might be to have a negative thought with it. How do you kind of shift yourself within a game or practice?
Mhm. Well, I one book that I read my first year overseas towards the end of the season that like changed my life without being too dramatic was called The Inner Game of Tennis. I think by like Tim Calloway or something. But it does such a good job at kind of breaking down what goes through like an athlete's mind. And everyone talks about get into the flow state, like once you're in the zone, like everyone knows those phrases and probably has experienced that feeling, but it seems so fleeting sometimes, like, oh, like why can't I just like feel like whatever. So it does such an amazing job at like breaking down like how you can even get into that mind space. And so for me, like I read the book once and I was like, oh my God, like that's what I've been thinking, that's what I've been feeling, that's what I've been like wondering. Like it's so like relatable, but you never really talk, you don't really even know how to articulate it sometimes because it's such like a ambiguous concept.
Mm.
But so I read that book and I was like, oh my God, like this is profound. Like this is what I need to like apply. And so for me, I'm a big like I love to read. I love to like journal. So I think just like finding a book that I so much like can relate to and put into practice. I would just revisit that book, highlight it, rewrite it, like journal. So one of the biggest things like in the book is like staying present, because if you think about what you just did, you're not going to do well now. If you think about trying to plan something in the future, you can't control that and you don't know how that's going to go. So staying present is the only way that you can actually like make the most of the moment. And then what I think is interesting is a lot of people talk about like positive thinking and negative thinking,
Mm.
but in the book it talks about like objective, like neutral.
Mm.
Because if you think good, like okay, good, 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 like just highs and lows. Whereas I think everyone's at their best when they can be a little bit more neutral. So seeing something as like an event, like objectively, like oh, I missed my shot. Oh, it was good. It was bad. No, like I missed it because it came out of my hand this way. Like being more like objective of a situation instead of like, oh, that's good, that's bad. Like adding emotion to it, I think has been like a big change for me, because even if it's like, oh, this is good, this is good, this is good, then something else happened. It's like, oh, this is bad. Like
Mm.
putting so much emotion into a single thing, even if it's good, I think can be a little bit maybe problematic, because it's still making you like analyze like how I'm feeling instead of okay, what can I do with this? Okay, that shot, it was my balance was everything was good. Sometimes you miss a shot, or oh, I missed that shot because my balance was off, or I rushed it, or things like that, like that are more like you can work with, and it's not so much like oh, this looks and then you have the whole ego that is like comes into play, like oh, but that looked bad, like so it's just like a million things that I was like wow, like this makes a lot more sense onto why people get so easily frustrated, or people are so like overcritical of themselves, or like hyper analyze. So it's like I'm a bit of an overthinker, and so which can be my biggest strength because I do think I have a pretty high IQ in basketball, but it can also be a biggest weakness because overthinking and hyper analyzing and all that doesn't do you much good in the middle of a possession. So just kind of putting that book specifically into practice was like a game changer for me. Um, and then yeah, I think again, like I love to journal, I love to do all that before games. So just kind of getting in the right mind space and most of all enjoying it, because I mean I don't think anybody really plays their best if they're stressed and unhappy.
Yeah, and that's so interesting as well because it can be so complex to the point of like, it came off your hand wrong, but it can also just be so simple of like moving on to the next player.
Mhm.
People just think, oh, it's a good or bad shot, but there's just so much more that goes into it, especially when you're in the heat of play. Do you think that sort of outlet and the advice that you were receiving right now in within your first year into now, do you think you would have been able to even apply that while you were in college?
Um, I think so. I think I've always been kind of a sponge and wanting to be the best I can be, whether that's learning from a teammate, learning from a coach, learning from an opponent. Like I've always been pretty open-minded in any outlet that I can receive to get better.
Mhm.
But again, I think it also just comes with growing pains. Like you can tell me anything, but until you go through it, you don't really fully get the experience to get the wisdom from it, I guess. So I probably would have been open to it, but I think unless you go through it and it's like you have to figure it out yourself or you're just kind of going to be stuck, then I think that's also what I needed to.
Yeah, and I love that term that you use too, growing pains, because it's so much again, kinda going back to the it's so much easier said than done that sometimes you have to experience it to really understand, or even if you learned it, you have to experience it to apply it. So I
Mhm.
really love that, and now I'm gonna suggest that book to everyone basically
Yes,
because now
yes.
I'm about to
No,
read it.
every teammate I've had since then, like I got it from ironically a coach
Yeah,
that was I was friends with in Sweden, and I was like, I don't know how you're applying this as a coach because this is like a playbook for a player, and he was like, oh, but it's like teaches you not to overteach. Like sometimes you just have to let the person like figure it out themselves,
yeah.
whatever. And I was like, I've recommended to every one of my teammates, everybody. I'm like, you just like you're frustrated, you're struggling, like you don't know what. Read the book. Just read the book. Like it's a quick, easy read, and you'll definitely get something out of it.
Right, but like you said, it would change your life. Again, not to be dramatic, but it did change my life.
Yeah.
Um, I wanna talk a little bit about the competition level from between you being in Sweden to now saying that you're probably playing your most competitive basketball in Hungary. Talk to me a little bit about the steps of how you were able to kinda move up within the overseas realm and get to a more competitive style of play.
hmm Yeah, so I went in Sweden, and it was it's an okay league.
Mm,
I mean, they're great people, and but there's definitely I would say the way that you can rank countries and leagues based on their level of competition is by how many Euro Cup and then Euro League teams are in that country. So Sweden didn't have any. Still had good players. Still was a good league. I think it was a great league for me to first begin in because it was probably the smoothest transition you can get going overseas because I mean they speak perfectly good English. I mean everybody's so nice and it was a great transition to professional basketball. Um, but yeah, they didn't have any Euro Cup or Euro League teams. So I'm not sure how if people understand the dynamic, but so there's Euro Cup, which is like one European wide league. There's probably about I don't know, maybe like 60, 70 teams to start with. And those are usually the better teams in the individual countries' leagues. And then there's Euro League, which is the top league in the Europe, and there's probably like 16 teams to start with. So it's a little bit more competitive. You have to actually qualify every year to be into it. So, uh, yeah. So Sweden didn't have any of those teams, but like you're still playing against good players, still playing basketball, and you play a good season and you have good numbers. And I have a great agent who I appreciate and works well for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't really be in the situations that I'm in. So then they do their job a little bit, and then you have coaches all over and word of mouth, and players here, players there, and they see you, they recognize you, and then they reach out to your agent, and that's kind of how that goes. So yeah, I had a good first season in Sweden, and then I got an offer in Poland, which was a more competitive league. They had 2 EuroLeague teams and 3 Euro Cup teams, so they were definitely a more competitive in that aspect. My team was still just in the Polish league, no Euro Cup, Euro League, or anything like that. But we finished well. We finished top four. I think we lost in the semifinals to go to the finals. So, or we lost in the final four. Yeah. So we made it out at the fourth position, which I mean I of course always want to win, but I mean we were looked at as like the underdog. I think coming into the season we were ranked like 9 or 10. So it was a good season for us. And then ironically, that league ended early for like a weird 3-on-3 Polish event they wanted to have their players ready for. So
Okay.
that league ended pretty early comparatively to what they normally end at. So we ended there around like March 20th, which was pretty early. And so I had a pretty good season there. And Venice, Italy, reached out to my agent and they wanted me to come play with them the last 3 months of their Italian league, which was they usually go until a little bit like June or end of May. And so I played my last game and I flew straight to Italy and within a week span, like just kind of like pack your bags, like you're going here. And it was an amazing opportunity. This team was in Euro Cup, made it to the finals in Euro Cup. They came in second, I think, or maybe they came in the third or fourth. And so they were a very top, very, very good team. I mean, played with 1, 2, 3 or 4 WNBA players were on that team. So I was amongst very good players. And so play with them. And then that was just like great experience, great learning experience. Like, Venice, Italy, you can't really beat that. And then obviously like everything is a resume builder depending on like how you look at it. So then finished there. We won it all, which was an amazing feeling, amazing experience. And then, I got the call here in the summer-ish I got an offer here, and we're in Euro Cup, and it's a solid club. And so every year it's been, working my way up. I mean, it's very performance-based. So, I mean, I'm fortunate to stay healthy and, continue to, play well and get better. But so it's been exciting, and I've liked it a lot so far.
Even with having all this experience, being in different countries, being on different teams, what is one part of your game that you still want to grow or work at?
I think defensively is always you can always be better on defense. I mean, I think as you play higher level teams and players, it's always more challenging to defend one-on-one and go over screens and all of that stuff. So I think defensively you can always be better. I mean, I've even just this season alone, I can see so much how much I've gotten better and grown in that area. But I would say defense and maybe just consistency. I mean, I think I've again, this season, I feel like I've been doing pretty well, but I'd like to just stay at even, like, this is what I want, instead of like great game, bad game, great game, low game, great game, So to continue to be consistent and reliable and solid in all areas. I mean, I look at myself as a pretty well-rounded player. I like to score the ball, facilitate, create, play defense. Like, I want to be able to be the best in every area. So it's hard to pick just one, but I think you can just always be better at everything. That's how I look at it.
Kind of going back to what you were saying about, never wanting to feel the highs too much, feel the lows too much, just kind of staying in that middle area. How do you apply that to losing now? Again, as any competitive player, nobody wants to lose. Losing can be obviously inevitable. But how do you work with that now as you've changed your mindset around certain things?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, you have to know who you are as a player and I think that stems from practice. I think it's similar to confidence. Confidence is a huge, thing in sports, and it's easy to, sometimes fluctuate, which, you don't really want. But I think that all comes from practice. Like, you can have a bad game, you can have a great game, but it all comes back to like, okay, but I feel confident when I have like practice. Like I heard this quote, it's like reps removes doubt. Like you can do something a million times, and like you're going to trust that you do it. And if you don't, execute it in the moment, like you still know that you can do it. And so I think just, focusing on like that stuff, like my confidence comes from the millions of hours of work I put in, not necessarily like how many shots I made in my last game. I think it's important to kind of root your confidence in something that's solid, which is, your work ethic and hopefully, or whatever. And so then once that's the case, then I think it's a little bit easier to just stay even keel when you have good games, bad games, outcomes you want, outcomes you don't want. Like, if your confidence and how you see yourself as a player is rooted in something that's more solid than outcomes, then I think you'll be fine. But otherwise, it's a very, very up and down, roller coaster, which, some people get caught on. And I myself have been caught in that, roller coaster before, and it's a little bit too much for me. So I like to just, know who I am and know my confidence comes from practice, practice, practice. And sometimes, you lose your confidence. You have a couple games where you can't make your shots, and you're like, okay. And then I just like to get in the gym more. Like, that's my solution, is like, sometimes it's like I need to get in the gym more because I need to just see the ball going. And sometimes it's like, okay, I need to take a break. I need to take a step back. Like, sometimes you can overdo it, I feel like, mentally. So just finding that balance and then rooting your confidence in something solid that you can control, I think it's been really helpful for me.
I mean, you're just feeding me all these really good quotes today. Like, I'm over here like wanting to write all this stuff down. Like, yes, reps does build confidence. I mean, even in what I'm doing, obviously, I'm no longer dribbling a basketball since like high school. But I mean, even just in terms of broadcasting, that's all they tell us to do is reps, reps, reps. No matter what you're doing, the more reps you get, the more confidence you're going to build, and trust that you can do it. So I think that's also another beautiful quote. Again, just feeding me all these good quotes today.
Can't take too much credit, but I do try to remember them all.
But I want to take a little bit of a step back from overseas and talk about just your experience getting there in general. So you did go to the WNBA Chicago Sky camp. What was the training camp like, and kind of what pushed your decision to start your career overseas?
Yeah, so the training camp was an awesome experience. I mean, you look up to these players for years, and then you're in the gym with them on their team. So I think it was I looked at it as just like a very experience I'm very grateful to have, even in the moment, even beforehand, because, WNBA is, you have different goals. Obviously everybody wants to make a team and be in the starting lineup. Like, that's, everyone would love that. But logistically, like, they bring in 20 players to a training camp, and I don't know, maybe 10 of them are already like in the team. Like, the odds. So I just wanted to, learn as much as I can, like, do as much as I could, compete, enjoy it, have fun, not be too stressed about like, oh, when am I going to get cut? Like, stuff like that. Like, and I was very fortunate because, if you were a stranger that walked into the training camp and it's just like a normal practice, you wouldn't know who is a training camp signee and who has been there for 5 years. Like, it was just so welcoming to everybody. Everybody was a part of the team. We were all, it felt like everybody was on the team, which I was very grateful for, because I can't speak for any other, organizations, but I'm sure it's not always like that. I'm sure it's like, okay, you're a trainee, like, you go get the waters, like you're just here on training camp, like, you go to, like, I don't know, maybe not, but I just kind of felt like maybe that's how it could be. Like, you're low man, like, you're not even on this team, like, go do something else. And it was never like that. Just the staff, the training, the strength coaches, the players, the vets, like, everybody was just so welcoming, so helpful. And so in that aspect, like, I was super grateful. Like, I learned so much. Like, it was, to me, looking back, because it's just a completely different kind of style of basketball. I think DePaul was a pretty unique style of basketball that we played, which I loved, of course. But, then you go and similarly to overseas, it just seems like a completely different basketball game at times. But it was just so much learning, and it was very fast paced, and it was this drill, like, no breaks, like this and this, and then you get something explained to you once, and like, you better pick up on it, which I feel like I'm pretty good at. But it was like like 2 hours of like full engagement, which I loved, but at the same time I was like, well, like, this is obviously the next level. So it was really a great experience, and I was very grateful for it. And it's just another step in what I was very grateful to do. As far as knowing if I wanted to go overseas, it's kind of interesting, because I remember my freshman year in college, I was like, I never like grew up like, I'm going to play professional basketball. Like, of course, of course you have that in your mind, and then you go to college for it, and you're like, okay, that's an option. But it was never like, okay, I'm setting out, like, I'm going to be in the pros. Like, I was never really like that. And so I remember my first year or second year of, maybe my first year of college, I majored in communications, thought I was going to be like broadcasting. I was like, okay, I love sports, like, I'll stay in sports, but not.
And you can always join this side whenever you want.
Yeah. Now I gotta Yes, I'm in. So I was like, "Okay, like, we'll do that." And then my sophomore year, I was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And then Coach Bruno was like, like, you could be really good. Like, you could play post college." And I was like, "Oh, I never really, like, thought about it." Like, "Okay, yeah, that would be cool." And then it got a little bit more serious, and then my junior year, he was like, "You can be in the WNBA. Like, one day you'll be in the WNBA." Like, he just having somebody like that, like, instill confidence in you. Like, not necessarily that I lacked confidence, it just never really crossed my mind. Like, I never grew up with somebody that I knew that played professional sports, like, so it just didn't cross my mind, and then he was like, "No, you can do this, like, you'll be there one day, like, this is, like, what." So I'm just for a million reasons, eternally grateful to Coach Bruno, but, that was probably the shift where I'm like, "Oh, like, okay, like, I can do this for my job, like, that would be, like, pretty cool." And then my senior year, like, whatever, we still was playing well, and then I got the training camp, and then after that was done, I was like, okay, like, I had an agent at the time, and he was like, working pretty well for me, and he gave me a couple offers, and I was like, you know what, like, let's just go for it. Like, I'm pretty open minded. Like, try something out. If it doesn't work, you can always come back. But like, whatever opportunity, you try and seize it. And so then, yeah, I took my first offer and went to Sweden and just had such a good experience. And I mean, I think you also take what you put into it. So it's like you can go over there and like only hang out with yourself and only do this. But I mean, I tried my best to just fully, immerse myself into the culture and the people. And I just had such great people around me and I had such a great experience. And then I was like, okay, like I would like more of this. And then same thing in Poland. So I've been very lucky everywhere I've been around great people and playing good basketball and in good systems. So I got to give some credits to that. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't my first thought to be doing this, but I'm very grateful for it.
I want to test his theory too. So, I mean, Coach, obviously you are familiar with Coach Gino from UConn. I feel like he kind of harps on European style of play, or in terms of they practice a lot and play fewer games. How do you feel about that as compared to American, like maybe a lot more games, a little less practice? How do you feel about more practice, less games, or if that's kind of an accurate depiction of it?
I think it's very accurate. I just remember when I was in like high school and playing AAU basketball, and we would have like my team was a little bit different because I had a coach that was pretty like hard headed. So we practiced probably more like twice a week, which was more than probably any AAU program at the time you would see, especially nowadays. But we would have like 6 games in a weekend. Like it's some madness, like just crazy. And so I come over here and I mean, professionally, it's a little bit hard to gauge because I'm not sure what the juniors are doing. But I mean, we play 1 game a week in the professional league, and then you practice the week. So it's like definitely in that ratio, it's more practice than play. But the European style, which I was also a little bit surprised about comparatively to America, is I think it's much different. I think it's so different, and I was a little bit surprised, and it took me a whole probably year and a half to like kind of like figure it out a little bit in a good way. Like I think what's very different is in America we have very athletic players, very skilled. Like you have the physical abilities that are just like sometimes off the charts.
Mm.
But maybe not so much in Europe, right? Like they don't have maybe all these like freak athletes that you'll have in America.
Mm.
So they learn the game very well, fundamentally, and like IQ is like very, very good from a young age. And so when I came over, like it's a different style of play because, and this is maybe like more my opinion or perspective, but I think you have less players that can do everything. So like in America, you have like all these talents. They can shoot, they can score, they can post up, they can drive, they can pass, whatever.
Mm.
So maybe in Europe, you don't have a player, especially like maybe in some of the lower leagues, you don't have players that can do, everybody can do everything. So they have some players that are really good at one thing. Like this player can shoot really well. This player is really good point guard, like facilitator. Like this person is really good in the paint only. Like, so then they figure out like, okay, how can we make the game like work? And so they teach ball screens incredibly well. Ball screen defense, ball screen offense, ball screens in the ball screen and what's going on off the ball screen. Like
Mm.
just learning all that. I mean, again, like our style of play at DePaul was a little bit more off ball, like freelance. So a little less structure, which I enjoyed. But so coming from that and then coming to like a very pretty structured, like European style, it was it was pretty like, okay, I got to play a little bit more pace because like just running around fast doesn't really work because then your timing's off and then you're open, but like nobody else is ready for the action. So it's like it was learning curve in that sense. And then of course like the better teams that I'm on, like you have a little bit of mix of both. So it's like very structured because like you can be very tactical and it can be very advantageous, but you're on a team with better players who can also play like in the open court. So just finding that balance is what I love because I do like to play quick and like up and down and like in the open court, but I can start to acknowledge that it is very beneficial to like have it's like a chess match, which I like. It's I love like it's something that I never really thought about before. But it's like okay, like this team has this weakness,
Mm.
and we have a play that can exploit that through pick and roll or post up or off ball screen. So it's like constantly like that is I think a little bit more European than American, which I've enjoyed. But I mean, of course, it all blends together. At the end of the day, it's basketball. But um, yeah, I would say that the style is can be pretty different.
Yeah, and I love that explanation that you had too, because that was going to be a question of mine of just what is the benefit of being in Europe and having coaches and just a style and system that plays to players' advantages as compared to American style. And again, still basketball at the end of the day, it's all going to blend together. But even when you said like thinking of the AAU teams now and just player developments, this idea of like you have to have the all around game. And if you don't, it's almost like it's just something that's like almost like an exploitment of like, oh, you don't have this, like you need to work on it right now. So I
Mhm,
can definitely see the benefits of being able to play to your advantages, but also like the weaknesses of it too.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I mean, I obviously like the best teams in the world have more players that can do more than one thing. Like
Yeah.
they're not just one dimensional. But I do think that it's interesting to take players that can be just incredible shooters,
Mm.
like crazy shooters. Like, okay, maybe they can't do much without the ball, but that can still be a amazing team if you can learn or understand like how to put that person in their best. Like if they just stand in the corner or they come off screens and they can just knock down a shot, learning how to implement an offense where like that can be used to your advantage. And then, so I think you're right. Like in America, it's like okay, you can't do everything. Like then I don't know if you're good enough. But like I think over here it's like, okay, well, you can't do everything. We'll get very, very, very good at this, and
Mm.
then the fundamentals, and then you can be very successful, which I think is a good approach. But I think I have the American mindset where it's like I have to be good at everything.
And I love that you brought up AAU too, because I feel like that's been a really hot topic nowadays too, just as compared to, maybe even when you were growing up, just compared to how AAU is now for both boys and girls, men's and women's basketball. Just the style that they're learning, a little bit less of kind of like personal development, or even, there's so many trainers nowadays that like they all have different trainers, and then they all come together and play AAU games. And as you said, they have 6 games a weekend and then like 2 practices. Looking back at it now, do you think that not necessarily hurt you, but in terms of how the style that you're playing now, do you think that was the way to go in your development as a young age? Or how do you feel about the whole AAU stuff going on?
Yeah, I think again I was an anomaly and I was very lucky because I was on a small AAU team with people from local high schools, so it wasn't necessarily like just where I was, so it was a little bit more regional, but it was a small organization led by like my one coach Sarah Pifo, like she led it by herself, and it was just pretty much we had some lower teams, but she had her main focus on us, and it was pretty legit. Like we practiced as much as we could as a collective group because we all were at different high schools with different high school schedules and stuff. But in the summer, like we were pretty much as close to like a true basketball team as an AAU organization could be. And it's probably because we were just small and it was just a very local situation. But then I did get offers to come play at these other like higher EYBL Nike sponsored like these places. When they tell me like, oh well, we don't practice together. Like you do your own practice and then you come and we go to these big events because we have the Nike sponsor, and then all these college coaches come to watch us because we have a big name. And I'm like, you guys don't even know each other. And we actually had a girl on our team go to one of those organizations, and we would go play at those tournaments, and she would like come hang out with us in our hotel. Like, so I'm like, I could see some of the merit where it's like, okay, you get more exposure, but I'm like, I can't convince myself to not practice with these girls, not get along with these girls, not play with them, and then go and like be expected to like have a good chemistry of 5-on-5. Like, even at a young age, I was like, that doesn't really make sense. And then now it's just like, that's all it is. It's like, just, I think it's not the best team basketball. I mean, you see it. I think it's very individual and it can be selfish. And I think I understand, like, you kind of have to do what you have to do to get yourself out there. But I don't know if it's the best for, the next level, because then you have players that, okay, they can do great in this one-on-one, like they look good on court, but then you bring them into an organization where they have to be on a team. And can they do that? I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what the answer is, but I do think it can be a little problematic.
Yeah, and I mean, just in your perspective, like you mentioned, of you had a girl on your team go to one of those higher level AAU programs, and it's like she's coming back to hang out with you guys. How important do you view it as a player to have a chemistry with your team off the court in order to have success on the court?
I think it's huge. I really think like it transfers over. I've been on teams and I've seen teams that have all the talent in the world, but they hate each other. And yeah, you can say it's a job, and you just tolerate each other, and you do your job well, and maybe you get somewhere. But I've seen it make them fall apart, and then they crack at the slightest bit of pressure. And if you don't get along, if that's not your best, I mean, okay, it doesn't have to be your best friend, but if you don't care about that person off the court, then I think in the tough moments when there's high emotion and you're exhausted in a game, and something's not going your way, it's like nothing's gonna make you want to go pick that girl up if you don't like her. Like, and I think that's why I think like my teams, like I've always kind of been on like maybe like underrated teams, but I think our biggest strength has always been that. Like, I've always had a really good group of girls around me, and we've always got along and cared. And I think we've had amazing upsets against teams that were on paper crazy talented. I think it makes the biggest difference. I mean, I'm not saying you have to, be childhood best friends, but I think it makes it more fun if you can, build these relationships and enjoy the off the court moments. But I think I think it makes the biggest difference, because like I said, I've been a part of teams where it's like, okay, these people don't get along. Like, I feel like I kind of get along with everybody, whatever. But I've seen that, okay, this girl and this girl, they really don't get along. So then it's like, okay, like just having that tension in the team, it's like, it's never really going to help you. So yeah, I think it's very important.
And you foreshadowed it a little bit, so we're going to get into DePaul and Coach Bruno and everything. But I just want to talk about your career at DePaul a little bit, because since freshman year, you were already starting or playing in at least 32 games and averaging 15 minutes, and then leading the team in three-point shooting percentage, which is insane as a freshman. And again, you're such a notable program as DePaul, just being able to walk in at like 18 years old and be like, I can do all this. And then to senior year, you sort of transitioned into having to play a different role as point guard, but still were averaging big numbers, assists, your leading Big East in steals, and all these other things. So let's talk a little bit about your career at DePaul. I want to start with first your recruitment with Coach Bruno. What was his pitch to you, and why did you decide that DePaul was going to be a place you called home?
When I was getting recruited, I had a decent amount of offers. I would say probably close to 30 Division I offers. A lot of them were maybe low D1, mid D1, like nothing like, I didn't have super big offers. So DePaul at the time was one of my biggest offers, because I think they were top 25 in the nation consistently for the past like 10 years, like made the tournament the last like 16 years. So they were like on that roll where it's like they were, one of the top programs in the nation. And so they were like already like, okay, that's a big offer to me. And then I had a couple other ones that were pretty exciting. And, I went on a visit to TCU, official visit. And then I went on an official visit to DePaul. And I thought the biggest difference was I really liked how they did their visit, because, everyone's going to try and sell you this and wine and dine you and, make it all look pretty. But DePaul kind of, and they still, to my knowledge, this is how they go about it. They were like, we're going to show you what it is like, we're going to show you the real side. Like, we can take you to that. And they did take me to some nice steak dinners, but like we can show you all the fancy things, but like you're gonna stay in a dorm with the player. You're gonna be with the girls without us. Like we're not gonna look over your shoulder and try and make sure everyone's saying the right things. Like we want you to ask what you want to ask. We want you to know what you want to know. And it just felt so real. And so to me, I really respected that because, I think I know of a lot of players, especially now, where it's like they get sold on this super pretty picture and then they get there and it's not what they said and it's not how it was. And it's like, what happened to this? Like, what was that? Like, so I think it was so real. And okay, it wasn't like, I don't know, I didn't leave with like a designer bag. Like, it wasn't like something like crazy fancy, but it was just like, okay, like that's like how it's going to be. And I enjoy it. Like, City of Chicago sells itself. Bruno's resume sells itself. Like, the basketball was awesome. And so I was just like really appreciative of like, okay, this is what you're going to get. Like, if you don't like it, then we can appreciate that. But at least you know what you're going to come for. And so to that, I was like, okay, like I'm okay with this. And I mean, Bruno, he was like, he was kind of trying to sell me like, oh, but at the end of the day, I didn't really need like a persuading. It was more so just like, it's your right fit. Is the people feel right? Do the people feel good? And it did. So it kind of just all came together, and I can't imagine going anywhere else really.
And what was that first initial freshman year like for you, stepping into practice and knowing you have now a Hall of Famer coach? But at the time, he had coached the Olympics. Again, he had a top 25 program for years, was consistently winning the Big East, making the tournament. What was that like freshman year, stepping onto the practice court for the first time and being like, okay, I'm in a Doug Bruno campus or practice now?
Yeah. Well, I think what's so special about him is he has all this that, is and can be very intimidating. But then you meet him as a person, and he's just the most down to earth, genuine guy that you wouldn't even know anything. Like you see him in this a random place, like you wouldn't know any of this about him. Like that's just how he conducts himself. That's how he treats you. That's how he talks to you. That's just who he is. And so I think in that aspect, like you get the nerves and any sense of somewhere new, someplace new. But I don't know if I ever really maybe was super nervous about that part, just because of how he kind of conducted himself and how he treated me and made me feel about the situation. He's very, he's not shy to correct you, but he does it in the sense that's, it's for your benefit. It's not like to tear you down or to be personal or to make you feel bad. Like, his interests and his intentions are so genuine that it makes you feel a little bit more at ease about the whole situation.
And I know he's also a quote machine himself. He has his Dougieisms. So what are just some quotes from Coach Bruno that resonated with you that you bring into games to this day or just in your everyday life?
Yeah, well, I mean, he has the 10 we wills, which are like the 10 amendments of basketball that he came up with, that we had to recite as a freshman, written in paper. And then every game day, we would all kind of do that. So I still remember those. But I don't know, you're right. He has so many like one-liners that you're like, okay, that's like gold. But I think like the one that probably a lot of his past players will say is like, wake up in the morning with a smile, show the world you're beautiful, thank God for the opportunity of another day. How do you thank him? By working to your God-given potential. I think just that, concept in itself is just very like, okay, grounding. And it's like, it's so easy to get caught up. It's so easy to, there's a million things going on, so many things you want to do, but just kind of just like waking up, being appreciative, gratitude, and then go about your day and like just working hard, I think is like, something that I've always remembered. But yeah, I don't even know. You could write a book on all his sayings. It would probably be a bestseller. So, but yeah, I think that's the one that always sticks with a lot of us.
You mentioned that you've always kind of been a part of teams that were maybe sort of an underdog story. Do you feel like the group that you had at DePaul was a little bit of an underdog group too? Or do you think you guys reached the potential that you could have?
Well, it depends on which year, because I think every year is a new team and it's a different dynamic and there's different goals and there's different potential, I guess. I think as a program, DePaul, though it's very distinguished and has a good resume, I think it is always a underdog because we're not in a Big Five conference. We don't have this fanciest facilities. We don't have this. We don't have that. Like we have pretty humble. I mean, now it looks stunning. I'm a little jealous, but I mean, we all share like the same like athletic department and whatever. So I think in that sense, like we were always kind of the underdogs and big matchups and even, obviously you play teams that are less than you, but I think going every year, it always kind of felt like we had a chip on our shoulder because we didn't have all this money. We didn't have all this like fancy equipment and spawn like whatever. Like so in that sense, I feel like we always did feel like an underdog and even though we were we the program is shown to be pretty successful. I kind of always felt that way. Like, there's these programs out here that have so much money they're just throwing around. Like, we don't look like that. And we always had, like, we never had, I mean, of course, at sometimes we did, but we never had, like, the top recruit in the nation, like stuff like that. So I think we were all just very hardworking, solid people. And, we went with that instead of the flashiness, which I can appreciate and I gravitate towards more. As far as, the potential, I don't know. I think everyone similarly feels like my senior year, we were came up a little short.
Mm.
On paper, we were very talented. We had a lot of individual players that were very, very good, but just didn't kind of put it together the way that we probably could have. So that's always kind of like a little bit of a bummer looking back because, you just have everyone. I mean, any potential that feels wasted doesn't feel good. But
Mm.
I mean, at the end of the day, like still a group of girls I love and, still experiences and lessons you learn. So you can't be too upset about it. But I would say that's probably the feeling of if we reached our potential. I mean, other years we won the Big East tournament, like, so there's been obviously the successes and then there's obviously been areas that could have ended better.
What was your initial reaction knowing that UConn was going to come back into the Big East Conference and you guys had been, again, winning the Big East tournament for the past years and just knowing that that next level of competition was going to come in? What was your initial reaction to that?
Well, for me, I remember it wasn't a huge deal because we had already scheduled UConn every single year. We've played them every year, which I loved. I love if you're going to be the best, you got to beat the best. So I always appreciated Coach Bruno's scheduling hard teams. So in the aspect of like, oh, we're going to play UConn, like that was just another season for us.
Mhm.
Now, of course, the Big East, like we knew it was going to be a little bit more challenging to win a championship, though it was never easy. I mean, Marquette, Creighton, Villanova, like there was always good teams. Obviously, UConn is in a league of its own, so to say. But so that part was like, oh, okay, like now we really like have our work cut out for us. But I don't know. I think even since freshman year, just kind of playing those teams and having Bruno like instill the confidence in us, like we were never scared to play UConn. We were never scared to play these teams that were ranked top 5 consistently. But, obviously we want to win these games. We're not just happy that we get to share a court. Like we want to win these games. We want to compete. So we knew in the sense of the competition and of course the Big East as well, like it was going to be hard, but I don't know. I don't think it was anything like intimidation or anything like that.
Going back to Coach Bruno, what was your relationship like with him? Because I know everybody had their own very special relationship with him. He took a lot of pride in getting to know all of you and just trying to develop you all. And as you said, build confidence within each of his players. What was your personal relationship like with him?
I mean, I had a great relationship with him. I think I was a pretty quiet person my first year, and even my second year, even uh, in terms of him. Like obviously, socially, I had whatever, but I think to him, I was always kind of to myself. And even now, like when it comes to basketball, like I want to do the job. I want to do the job well. Like I'm not super crazy loud off the court when it comes to that stuff, but. So I was pretty quiet, but we have and had this rule where every morning before noon you had to go check in with him. You had to go say hi. You had to say whatever, and so you were forced to be face to face every single day without just being on the practice court, which could be annoying because it's like, oh, why would I have to go all the way up to go say hi and come back? But at the end of the day, I think it was like super important for me and for all of us, just to just say hi, how are you, in a different setting of the gym and the court, because obviously it's a little bit more intense and different feeling there. But I think just having that, and then he's just somebody that you just so easy to get along with. I mean, he's asking how you're feeling, how you're doing, like you're away from home, like he's so understanding and so like wants to help you and know how you're feeling and be there for you, that I mean, I just could never understand how you can't have a good relationship with him. But that's not for me to understand. But um yeah, I mean, and then it just grew. I mean, the more that I invested, the more, he respected it, and the more that the more I would reach out. So it's like the relationship grew over the 4 years, and I mean, I'm forever indebted to him and how he turned me into a great player and taught me so much on and off the court. And even after I graduated, like he still reaches out, he still says, "How are you?" He still checks in and just stuff like that. It's like I don't know how common that is nowadays, and the crazy world we live in with everybody going everywhere and so much going on. But he's just such like a genuine person that I couldn't imagine playing for anybody else or leaving or whatever. And yeah, I mean, I think the relationship I had with him is a huge reason as to why I am here where I am today, which is, you know, I'm very appreciative of him.
And you've mentioned a couple times that DePaul has a certain style of basketball that has been different from where playing overseas. How would you describe DePaul women's basketball and what Doug tried to create?
I think it's very fast paced. I think if you're playing against us, you hate it. We would play full court defense, 90 minute or 40 minutes of the game, and we're in your face, and it's fast, and we shoot quick, and so it's a style that it can be very fun, but it's not a lot of structure, um, which which I love it. I love playing quick. I love reading off of each other. I think that was in our best years with a team that was very kind of in tune with what each other would do on the court. I think it's a very, very hard system to play against because you can't scout it. You can't scout. We don't even know what we're gonna do, you know? We just kind of read and react off of each other. So I mean you can know personnel, but I think when it's with the right people, it was an awesome system. I remember I think maybe my sophomore year with Kelly Campbell, Shantae, or even my freshman year, like just having like everybody can run, everybody can dribble the ball, everybody can shoot quick, everybody can go rebound, everybody defends, like everybody's all locked in, and we can play up or down. And the biggest thing was like it was a reading offense. So it's like we have this screen coming here, the screen coming there, but then they can go here and you read off of that. So I like that part of it. And I think it's very hard to scout and defend if, everyone's kind of on the same page on our end. But yeah, but that's tricky to, just know where someone's going to be. But I think that's the benefit of, being together for 4 years is you can kind of get good at that. But yeah, I would just say it's a very, very, very up tempo style of play, a lot of read and react,
Mm.
pretty freelance. And I had fun. I mean, you get a lot. I mean, you get so many more shots up. I mean, it's I could never play in a system where it's like we're gonna walk the ball up and we're gonna call a play every single time. I don't think that's basketball. I think that's your coach having a little bit too much power. Like I don't know. I don't think that's very fun for anybody. Or we're gonna sit in a zone for 40 minutes. Like no, like let's compete. Like let's I don't know. So I like the style that we played in a lot.
Having that sort of free style and just being able to, as you said, play unstructured basketball, do you think that helped you develop your IQ as a basketball player? Because again, there isn't a structure of being like, you're going to run this play. You have to understand and, as you said, read and react. Did that help develop you IQ wise on the basketball court?
Yeah, I think in some senses because I learned that part of basketball. I think that's a little less common. So I was able to we learned how to read screens off ball a lot. We didn't do a ton of ball screens. So we did a lot about off ball screens, running or cutting and, kind of stuff like that. And so yeah, I think learning that side of like okay, reading what they're going to do, reading the spacing, reading the off ball screens like and then when I got overseas, it was a lot very heavy pick and roll, which
Mm.
I was learning like, okay, what comes up behind like so I think in this sense, like it helped because I learned that so well and I was so secure in like reading a screen and reading what the defense does if they set a screen and go this way. And then it just kind of like, okay, the next was like, okay, now I'm going to learn a lot more about pick and roll stuff. So it was kind of like, it kind of worked out well for me because I got the full picture now, I feel. But yeah, I definitely going overseas, I had a little less experience with like the pick and roll reads and actions and defenses and stuff like that. Cause I mean, we were always kind of a short team, or at
Mhm.
least we were all pretty quick. So we just switched every pick and roll. So now overseas was the first time I was ever like, okay, get over it or get under it or hedge or whatever. So it's all a learning curve. But yeah, I think it helped in the sense of like, okay, I learned very well off ball movement, but then it became like, okay, on ball screens, like I had to break that down a little bit more when I was overseas.
And sorry, my dad's about to walk in, so I'm gonna give him a second to walk in the door. And then I just have one more question for you.
There you go.
That's the hard part of having to film this stuff in your living room, but
Where are you at right now?
I'm at home. I live at home. So we have our little setup in the living room. I told them to wait a second, so I'm gonna ask my last question to you. My last question is, what do you miss most about your college experience that maybe you don't get playing overseas or just being professional?
Oh, I gotta say, I miss my friends. I miss D. I miss my teammates like that so much. Like just being with them every single day. It was so much fun. Like we had so much fun. Like, we were so close. Like living with your best friend was like you couldn't be better than that. So I make friends here. I make friends like everywhere I go, and it's always a good relationship. And I've always enjoyed who I'm with. But just having a friendship like D and Jolie and Jory and Kelly, like having like living with somebody for 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, like having that bond was like just so special that I definitely miss like having those close best friends. And then of course Chicago, like you can't beat Chicago. Like
I mean, I don't know if you wanna be here right now because it's -5 degrees today, so there's always that, but obviously
okay, that's fair.
beautiful, and there's always something to do. But I did
That's
lie to you. My last question for you is if you could tell your younger basketball self just one message, what would you tell yourself?
ooh, that's a good one. Probably just to stay the course. Like, don't get too. You're. It was something that okay. Another quote that I love that Bruno said is like, "You're never as good as you think you are. And you're never as bad as you think you are. Like, don't get too high. Don't get too low. Like, just stay the course. Like, just wake up the next day and go work hard again and go work at practice again and just stay even. Like, you'll get better. You'll be fine. Like, things are gonna happen and just stay the course. Like, you'll figure it out. I feel like it's just I think 'cause I sometimes I was just so high or I was just so low and so critical and, like, so questioning yourself, and you're like, "What?" But, like, just stay the course, like, you'll be fine.
Well, Lexi, thank you so much again for taking the time to be on the podcast today, Kalia's Playbook, and best of luck with all your future endeavors. And I can't wait to, try and tune in, watch some more Euro. Now I'm learning too. Now I know
Yeah,
in Euro League, Euro Cup.
yes.
But yeah, have such a wonderful overseas experience. And again, thank you.
Thank you so much, this was so fun.